Every morning, before the noise of the world reaches us, before the emails start pouring in, before the news scroll begins, before we put on the mask we think the world wants to see, there's a small window, a quiet moment. That moment is yours, and what you do with it matters more than most people realize. Because how you talk to yourself in that space, in that fragile and sacred pause between sleep and the day, is not just a ritual. It's a form of leadership, self-leadership. Too often we dismiss self-talk as something fluffy or unnecessary. We might even feel silly doing it, like it's a kind of cheerleading or shallow positivity. But the truth is, the voice in your head is the most influential voice in your life. It narrates your choices. It shapes how you walk into a room. It decides how you respond to setbacks, and it builds or breaks your resilience. That voice isn't just talking, it's leading. So the real question becomes, where is it leading you? Self-talk is not self-indulgence. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. And it's not about avoiding hard truths or painting everything with optimism. It's about being intentional with how you speak to yourself, especially when no one else is listening. That inner dialogue can become a compass, guiding you through the challenges of the day, or it can be a critic that drags you back into fear, shame, and self-doubt. The choice is yours. Every morning, we don't need to wait for someone else to validate us. We don't need to chase perfection before we feel worthy. In fact, believing those lies is exactly what slows us down, burns us out, and keeps us from living fully. That's why what we say to ourselves in the morning isn't a pep talk, it's a rebellion, a quiet, powerful act of resistance against the messages we've been given about our worth being conditional. Telling yourself that you're strong even when you feel scared is not denial, it's courage. Reminding yourself that you're allowed to make mistakes, that you're still lovable when you're messy is not weakness, it's wisdom. Looking in the mirror and saying, I'm enough, when the world is screaming, do more, be more, prove it, is not naive, it's necessary. If we don't take the time to lead ourselves internally, we get led by everything external. The expectations of others, the metrics of success, the pace of comparison. It all begins to dictate who we become. But when we start the day rooted in our own truth, when we anchor ourselves in self-respect, grace, and intention, then we move through the world differently. We stop trying to earn our way into belonging and begin showing up like we already do. That's what self-leadership is. It's not about being in control of everything. It's about being grounded in yourself when everything else is uncertain. It's about being the voice that says, I trust you, before the voice that says, you're not ready. It's being willing to meet yourself with the kind of compassion and clarity you often reserve for others. And yes, it takes practice. Some mornings you'll wake up full of doubt. Some days you'll forget your worth entirely. But the power of self-talk is that it's always available. You can begin again at any moment. You can choose to say, today I lead myself with kindness. Today I remind myself of who I am. Today I don't shrink. So no, it's not indulgent to speak to yourself with care. It's not self-centered to remind yourself that you are enough, that you're doing your best, that you have the right to rest, to grow, to ask for more. It's leadership, the most intimate kind. And it starts the moment you open your eyes, not with a script, not with perfection, but with honesty, with intention, and with the courage to believe that how you talk to yourself matters, because it does, every single time. Worthiness isn't something you hustle for. It's not a badge you earn through productivity, popularity, or perfection. It isn't a reward you receive after proving yourself to the world. Worthiness is already yours. The problem is, in a culture that tells us constantly we are not enough, we forget. We forget the simple, quiet truth that we are inherently worthy, not because of what we do, but because of who we are. Every day we wake up and step into a world that tries to sell us the opposite. Messages come from every direction, social media, advertising, even well-meaning friends and family, suggesting that our value is conditional, that we need to do more, look better, achieve faster, and never mess up. We internalize those messages and start to believe that our worth is something that exists outside of us, something that's always just out of reach. something we have to earn. But worthiness doesn't live in the future. It doesn't arrive when you get the job, lose the weight, fall in love, or finally become who you think you're supposed to be. Worthiness lives in the present. It's already there, buried beneath the layers of shame, doubt, and fear we've picked up over the years. And each morning we have the chance to remember it. Remembering your worth is not an act of arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about standing in front of the mirror, seeing your imperfections, and choosing to believe you are still deserving of love, rest, joy, and peace. It's about knowing that you don't need to perform to belong. You already do. That kind of remembering is radical. It challenges everything we've been taught about success and identity. It says that even on your worst days, even when you mess up, even when you feel broken, you are still enough. That doesn't mean you don't grow or strive or evolve, but growth that comes from worthiness feels completely different from growth fueled by fear. One is rooted in self-respect, the other in shame. When we forget our worth, we start chasing it. We hustle for validation, we overwork, we people please, we settle for relationships and jobs that shrink us, because deep down we don't believe we deserve more. We silence our voices because we're afraid they don't matter. But when we remember our worth, something shifts. We become less tolerant of the things that hurt us. We start protecting our peace. We make braver choices, not because we suddenly have more confidence, but because we're grounded in something deeper. You were born worthy. That's the truth. The rest is noise. The comparison, the perfectionism, the endless striving, they are distractions. They pull you away from what is already inside you. The work, then, isn't to become worthy. It's to unlearn the lies that told you you weren't. And unlearning takes time. It takes courage to look at the stories you've been told about your value and to ask, is this even true? It takes strength to rewrite those stories in your own voice. It means waking up each day and instead of rushing to prove yourself, pausing long enough to remember, I am already enough, just as I am, not when I have it all together, not when everyone approves, now. This remembering is not a one-time revelation, it's a daily practice. You don't have to feel worthy every moment. You just have to be willing to return to it again and again. Some days that remembering will come easy, other days it will feel like a fight. But each time you remind yourself that you matter, not because of your output or appearance, but simply because you exist, you reclaim a little more of your power. You don't need to earn your place here. You already belong. And the more you live from that truth, the more you begin to see that everyone else does too. When you remember your worth, you're more likely to honor the worth of others. You lead with empathy, you listen differently, you show up with your whole self, not just the polished parts. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before you step into the roles you carry, pause, breathe, and say to yourself, I don't need to earn today. I just need to remember. Because that's where your strength begins, not in becoming someone else, but in returning to who you've always been, worthy, enough, whole. We've been taught to fear vulnerability, to treat it like a crack in the armor, a flaw to cover up, something we need to fix before we can be strong, successful, or respected. But that's a lie, one that keeps us small, guarded, and disconnected. Vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's not the thing that gets in the way. It's the way forward. It's the beginning of everything real, and it's where all meaningful growth starts. Vulnerability is not your setback, it's your starting point. Every meaningful relationship you have, every moment of courage, creativity, love, or connection has been built on vulnerability. You cannot form trust without it. You cannot experience intimacy without it. You cannot take a risk, create something new, or tell the truth without being vulnerable. Vulnerability is the soil from which authenticity grows. And yet, most of us were conditioned to hide it. We were told to toughen up, act like we had it together, keep the messy parts to ourselves. But the cost of that is high. When we wall off our vulnerability, we also wall off our joy, our purpose, our ability to be truly seen. Being vulnerable means showing up without guarantees. It means admitting, I don't know, or I need help, or I'm hurting, even when it feels uncomfortable or scary. It's telling the truth when silence would be safer. It's risking judgment, rejection, or misunderstanding, not because you want to be hurt, but because living guarded all the time is no way to live at all. Vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing or being unfiltered with everyone. It means being honest with yourself and courageous with others where it matters most. When you start your day with vulnerability, you choose presence over perfection. You allow yourself to say, I'm doing my best and I don't have it all figured out. That's not a confession of failure, it's a declaration of humanity. It's how you stay connected to what really matters instead of getting caught up in comparison or performance. Vulnerability lets you start the day as you are, not as you think you should be. And that shift changes everything. You don't need to wait to feel bulletproof before you begin something meaningful. Whether you're starting a conversation, a project, a new chapter in life, or just a new morning, the fear you feel doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you're alive and paying attention. The truth is, you don't build courage and confidence first and then show up. You show up vulnerable, and that is how you build courage. Vulnerability comes first, always. It's easy to think that hiding our vulnerability keeps us safe, but what it really does is isolate us. When we pretend we're fine when we're not, or fake confidence we don't feel, we create distance between who we are and how we're seen. Over time, that gap becomes exhausting. We start to feel like imposters in our own lives. We wonder why we feel disconnected or numb. But what's missing isn't strength, it's truth. Vulnerability closes that gap. It brings us back to ourselves. And it's not just about us. When we lead with vulnerability, we give others permission to do the same. We make it safer for them to be real. That's how teams build trust. That's how families heal. That's how relationships deepen. Vulnerability is contagious in the best way. It's not dramatic or loud. It's subtle and powerful. It's saying me too when someone shares something hard. It's sitting with discomfort instead of rushing to fix it. It's listening with empathy instead of judgment. Some mornings being vulnerable means simply admitting that you're tired, that you're scared, that you're unsure of your next step, and yet you still choose to move forward. That is strength. That is resilience. Not the kind that's hardened and stoic, but the kind that bends, adapts, and endures. Vulnerability doesn't make you fragile, it makes you real. And being real is what the world needs more of. To start there. Start with your truth even when it trembles. Start with your fear, but don't let it steer. Start with your heart open, your defenses softened, your expectations lowered just enough to make room for something unexpected. It's where connection lives. That's where the good stuff happens. Vulnerability is not the thing holding you back, it's the thing calling you forward. You don't need to be unbreakable, you need to be honest, you need to be willing, you need to be human. That's more than enough. That's how you begin. We often mistake resilience for grit alone, pushing harder, staying up later, never backing down. We imagine resilience as the relentless ability to keep going no matter what, to never crack, never show weakness. But true resilience isn't about endless hustle. It's not about white-knuckling your way through life with a smile plastered on your face. Real resilience begins with honesty. It starts the moment you stop pretending you're fine and admit what's actually happening inside you. There's a kind of quiet power in telling the truth about how you feel. It takes more courage to say, I'm struggling, than to say, I've got this when you don't. And yet we've been conditioned to value performance over presence. We celebrate the person who never stops working, who's always busy, who seems unaffected. But that version of strength is often brittle. It breaks under pressure because it's built on denial. Resilience, the kind that lasts, is built on something stronger, the truth. When you're honest with yourself, when you allow space for fear, grief, disappointment, and uncertainty, you create the foundation for healing and growth. You stop wasting energy pretending and start using it to process, adapt, and find your footing again. That's where resilience begins. It's not about bouncing back instantly or being unaffected by pain. It's about facing life as it is and still choosing to move forward, grounded in reality, not illusion. Hustle without honesty leads to burnout. You can only override your own needs for so long before your body, your mind, or your relationships begin to show the cracks. When you ignore your limits, silence your emotions, or deny your exhaustion in the name of being strong, you're not building resilience, you're eroding it. Hustle can be a mask for fear. It can be a way to avoid slowing down. Because slowing down might mean facing things you'd rather not feel. But resilience doesn't grow in avoidance, it grows in truth. There's nothing weak about acknowledging that you're overwhelmed. There's nothing lazy about recognizing you need rest. These are the moments when honesty becomes a form of leadership, self-leadership. Because when you're honest with yourself, you start making choices that support your long-term well-being instead of sacrificing it for short-term approval or achievement. You begin to redefine what strength actually looks like. Strength is saying, I need help. It's admitting you can't do it all. It's setting boundaries that protect your energy, even if it disappoints someone else. It's telling the truth in a culture that rewards pretending. That kind of honesty is raw and sometimes scary, but it's also freeing. It lets you live in alignment rather than exhaustion. And that's where resilience finds its roots. When life gets hard, and it will, your ability to navigate difficulty won't come from how fast you move or how much you accomplish. It will come from how well you know yourself, from how deeply you trust your own inner voice, from how willing you are to be real, even when being real feels uncomfortable. Resilience is about coming back to center, not pushing past your limits until there's nothing left. Honesty gives you clarity. It helps you identify what you need, what's missing, what's not working. And when you have that clarity, you can actually respond to life rather than just react to it. You can adjust, you can pause, you can take a breath instead of forcing your way through. That's not giving up. That's wisdom. There's this idea that resilience means powering through the pain, but more often it means sitting with it, letting it teach you something, letting it soften you without breaking you. Hustle may get you results in the short term, but honesty will carry you through in the long run, because life isn't a sprint and you're not a machine. You are a human being, a complex, feeling, growing, evolving person, and you deserve the kind of strength that doesn't wear you down, but builds you up. So tomorrow morning, don't start your day with a to-do list. Start it with the truth. Ask yourself honestly, how am I really doing? And what do I actually need today? Let that be your compass. Let that be your strength. Because resilience isn't about how much you can carry. It's about knowing what to set down, what to hold close, and what matters most. And the only way to know that is by being honest with yourself before anyone else.